John Dailey, man, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. Author of Tough Rugged Bastards, a book coming out in August about your time with the Marine Corps in the recon community. You were infantryman, recon, and then you went on to Det 1, which was the experimental unit for the Marine Corps Raiders. It's pretty funny that I got this book before you did. You wrote the book, but your publisher sent me a copy before they sent you a copy. So tell them I really appreciate that, and I've enjoyed it so far. But thanks for coming on the show, man.
Oh, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, you're one of those guys, man. You've done so many things. I was like reading through this, and I'm like, this guy. I know in the book you talk about in the first I think it was 14 years, you basically had missed every combat opportunity that had come through. You were on embassy duty, I think, one time, and then you weren't in the right rotation for Somalia and stuff like that. And as someone that joined in the middle of the global war on terror, and it took me a few years to get a deployment in, that feeling of not getting to deploy when all your friends are deploying and stuff is very frustrating. Is that what you felt was like frustration? Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, absolutely. I went on embassy duty because I kind of mistaken. I didn't quite understand what it was. I mistakenly thought that, actually the career planner kind of put in my ear that I was going to get pulled away by the agency as to operate as a sniper, in Budapest. That didn't happen at all. So I spent a lot of time wearing my dress blues, saluting dignitaries and whatnot. But, I spent some time in Budapest, went to Buenos Aires, Argentina, which, by all accounts is a, beautiful, great place to be. But I got there right about the time the first Gulf War was kicking off. And when I came home from that, I was a sergeant with, sniper, some experiences. But, the Lance Corporals running around were, wearing 3 rows of ribbons, had been, how much combat they saw was, debatable, right? But
Yeah.
but they had been to combat and I hadn't. So it was definitely frustrating, to say the least.
Oh, man, I can't imagine. And people that haven't been in the military, maybe it's hard to explain. Maybe if you played sports, you can kind of get it. But it's like practicing all the time and never getting to play the game. You're always sitting on the bench watching other people, and you get to talk about how well they did or how bad they did, but you never have your own firsthand experience, and it can be frustrating. And I think that I think that's why a lot of people get out, because they're like, I'm tired of practicing, and the game's never coming, so I might as well get out of here.
That certainly was the case, when I came in '87, right? So we were, Vietnam, everybody had been out of Vietnam for quite a while. There had been a couple little incidents, but nothing significant. We really valued, the thing that we kind of talked shit about was how hard our training events were, how tough the CAX was, or how tough this, exercise up in Bridgeport was, because that's all that we had to do, or how tough our deployment was going to Okinawa and the, patrolling up in the NTA or whatever the case was. But then after that, after coming back, then kind of the story changed. Guys who had actually gone to combat, had a leg up, right? And it kind of stayed that way until 2001. And after that, once MARSOC started, it was interesting when we put the Marines to the training course. I would always ask, hey, how many of you guys have real combat experience? And for the first formative years of MARSOC, every hand went up nearly. Guys had tons of experience, and now obviously it's back to the point. And now I think we're on the tail end of probably what was experienced in Vietnam. That we have a lot of guys with combat experience, and you got the haves and the have-nots. So that, now I think that's driving a lot of people out. They joined, for a specific purpose. They've spent a lifetime watching, a nation at war, reading the newspapers, seeing movies about Chris Kyle and reading books. Yeah. And, coming in and realizing that you're in a relative peacetime military, even in special operations. There's still a lot happening, but it's a lot less kinetic, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. And so when you came in, you came in and you were an infantryman, and I know that you So I know that you've tried the Recon Indoc right at SOI and didn't make it through, and then you went on to 3-7 afterward, if I'm correct, right?
Correct.
Now this was still late 80s. Were your senior leaders all Vietnam veterans, or was there a sprinkling of them? Like, how much actual combat experience was still within the command from like Vietnam?
There was very little. I think our company first sergeant and the weapons company that I was in had been in Vietnam. Our sergeant major had, but really at that point it was those ranks that as a PFC Lance Corporal you're not talking to anyway.
Yeah.
So it was it was those guys, but we were nearly 10 years or a little more than 10 years post Vietnam. So and I think that was obviously like a turbulent time. There was a lot of people that weren't sticking around for a career. So there wasn't a lot, but there was still all of the lessons of Vietnam, and that's what we were training to fight. Constantly was another Vietnam. That's what we thought. The next war would hold for us.
And that's okay. So that's like a good example of what we learned over the last 20 years too, is that, what we talk about at the beginning, no one has any combat experience. You look at those guys that have combat experience, you're like, man, this guy's a leg up on me. He knows so much more than me because he's been there and done that. But then as we've done this for 20 years, we now go, well, just because you have combat experience doesn't necessarily mean you know what you're talking about. And your experience may not translate to other experiences. There's so many variations of combat that can occur. So I think that thinking of, oh, this guy is legit because he has combat experience is kind of waned a little, if that makes sense. Like in my own eyes, I'm like, oh, you were in combat. Cool. That lends a little bit of credibility. Well, what did you do? Who were you with? Like, what kind of operations were you doing? Because experiences may vary, right? My experience in Sangin with an advisor team in 2013 was very different than the guys of 3-5 that went to Sangin in 2010. And for me to try to say, it's just different experiences, even though it's in the same area and the battlefield has changed and things have shaped the way they have. So yeah, I don't know. It's a weird game we play, right? Where we want to maintain combat experience in the ranks, but you can't just stay at war all the time just to maintain experience. It'd be nice, but well, I guess it probably wouldn't be nice, but
yeah, I mean, 20 years is a long time to for that burden to be carried by a lot of the same people over a career,
for sure.
But yeah, and combat, deployments, don't necessarily equate to combat experience, so there's a lot of people who went and did what they were tasked with that, either are, left feeling that they missed out, even though they do have combat deployments, but didn't get to do what they thought they were going to do. And a lot of, we're seeing that now. And I think across the services that the missions that people are performing now are still critical to national security, but they're not kinetic, and we've spent 20 years building up in the young, men's and women's minds that the goal of service is to go shoot people in the face,
go slay dragons
and blast them. And that's for good or for bad, that's just not the standard at the moment.
Yeah, and like you said, even during the global war on terror, a combat deployment didn't necessarily mean combat. And that's something that I think it's been the most surprising when I talk to civilians for them is to find out that they think that everyone that's been in the Marines or went to Afghanistan were all in like crazy firefights. And I'm like, no, man, like probably 95% of them are on a base and never leave that base once they get there. There's nothing wrong with that because that's logistics, those medical personnel, those are people that are setting up the infrastructure for the guy, the 0311 at the pointy end of the stick to go out and fight and be taken care of as he's doing that. Right. We could talk about how bloated it became when, they started shipping in fast food and stuff like that for people. But yeah, combat, I don't know. The combat experience thing is always fun to talk about. When, now let's go back. Like I said, you in SOI, you tried out for the Recon Indoc and you didn't make it through because of the swimming portion, which I think is probably the story for many aspiring Recon Marine, right?
Yeah. Yeah. it shocked the hell out of me because I really did not know that I couldn't swim. I thought I could. I'd grown up in the hills and mountains of Virginia, West Virginia, kind of border area, and spent a lot of time in the water, in ponds and streams and lakes, and really thought that I knew how to swim. So I was, threw my hand up as soon as they asked, for volunteers. And the screening at that point, I did it out here at Camp Lejeune. Consisted of, I think we did a physical fitness test. We did the obstacle course a couple times. We did a ruck up and down the beach. And the last event was the pool. And I had, super fit, done really well. And then they threw us in the pool, and I realized when they like, hey, cross stroke 500 meters. I'm like, I don't know what the hell a cross stroke is.
Yeah.
I kind of had a modified breaststroke / the doggy paddle. It was my kind of standard go-to, and that didn't allow me to get through the Indoc. I wound up passing out in the pool. They pulled me out and told me to go back to the infantry, learn to swim and come back later.
Oh man, what's that like? Being underwater long enough to pass out?
Yeah, it's not the first time or the only time it's happened to me, but I think I don't even know if I talk about it in the book, but it, not something I recommend or suggest during training, but you just start to see the black walls kind of closing in, and it gets to the point where you're staring through a toilet paper roll, and you either get to the surface or you don't. Mm-hmm. But fortunately, we're kind of built so that if that happens, you stop trying to breathe, until you get pulled up, and then you'll generally kick back into it again. So I've seen it enough now to understand the mechanism and what happens. But we have a lot of people that want really, really badly to get into recon or into MARSOC that are willing to go to that point.
Yeah, it's crazy that you practice drowning like that to where you are fully aware of what is happening when it's happening. You do talk about a little bit in the book. I think during your dive training, you discuss that how it closes up, your vision starts closing out. And it's funny talking to guys like you that have done that, and SEALs that have done their kind of, it's all that drown proofing training where they take you to the edge and sometimes a little over just so you can recognize what's happening. That's got to be insanely scary. I mean, I'm like most people are afraid to drown. So being put in that situation where you're being on the edge of drowning and passing out, over and over again doesn't sound like a pleasant time, No,
it's not. But it's hugely beneficial to recognize it, and that's why we do it. We do it less in the pool. We do it in the high altitude chamber during free fall parachute school. And it's similar, but reverse. There's still a lack of oxygen. When they take you up to 35,000 feet, you take off your oxygen mask. They do that so that you can start to experience what happens to you, because what happens to you might not be the same thing that happens to me. Mm-hmm. What are the signs and symptoms? But yeah, eventually you kind of start getting goofy and lightheaded, because of lack of oxygen, and then eventually you'll pass out from lack of oxygen. But the whole function of doing that is to allow you to recognize, and I actually had an opportunity, I don't know if I'd call it an opportunity, but a parachute jump somewhere out in Arizona at 30,000 foot at night, and recognized, I'm like, oh shit, I'm passing out. I shouldn't be passing out right now.
Oh man.
My oxygen hose, I had pulled it out when I pulled my ripcord. I had disconnected my oxygen hose, and but I knew, I'm like, hey, I think I'm getting ready to pass out. I need to do something about this.
Damn, man, that's crazy. At least you had your ripcord pulled. I mean, it'd be worse if you passed out before your ripcord pulled.
That would be much worse.
Don't they now have like systems where that the parachute can automatically deploy at a certain altitude if you don't deploy it yourself, like a backup?
Yeah, and even then they did. Your reserve parachute will activate. There's various firing devices, a reserve firing device, automatic opening devices that will activate it. So by all, very likely if I had passed out, it would have opened it for me. But I was under, a good parachute at 30,000 feet, and knew that I was going to pass out, but also knew that, by the time I got down to 12,000 feet, I'd wake back up. So
that's crazy though. Yeah, but you pass out at 30,000 feet and you're floating around forever. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah. So in that case, my goal was to try to dump as much, use the mechanisms on the parachute to dump as much altitude as I could before I passed out. When I did, I woke up like from a nap at, around 12,000 feet, as that's what's supposed to happen. And that's what happened. Was able to identify that, hey, I'm underneath flying over the downtown, basically near the airfield that we had taken off of, but close to a kind of the small town that we were in the vicinity of. So I was able to just fly out, land my parachute, in the middle of a field, go to a payphone, and
that's so
say,
crazy.
hey, okay, come get me.
Oh man, I bet your team was like, just sweating it till you got a hold of them.
Yeah.
That's fun stuff, man. Well, let's I want to back up again and go back. So when you got to 3-7, in the book you talked about how you're an 0311, but you got sent to weapons company because of a clerical error. And for those that don't know, weapons company holds like mortars, machine gunners, stuff like that. They don't generally have riflemen, but they decided to keep you because they had a stay platoon, which is the what is it? The
surveillance target acquisition.
Yeah, exactly.
Platoon. As a sniper platoon, basically.
What are the odds of that happening? I mean, stay doesn't normally take boots, right?
No, and that was I consider one of the. I mean, I've had an incredibly charmed life. I feel like for a guy of average intelligence and talent, and many a guy who couldn't swim, kind of across the board. I had somebody looking out for me, and that was one of those times. I reported in, and I talk about it kind of humorously in the book. But the first sergeant, who was one of those guys with Vietnam experience, just starts yelling at me for not being not having the right MOS, even though it was an error that somebody else made. So he was just like, hey, I'm not dealing with this typo. So you're going to go to the only place that I can send you, and that's the sniper platoon. So I, of course, showed up there, and they all hated me because they had to spend years in the infantry before they tried out to get the opportunity to go to the platoon, and then spend the years training and trying out before they get the opportunity to go to sniper school. So it was.
Did you have any kind of Indoc or anything when you showed up there? Were they like, well, you at least have to make these minimum standards. If not, we got to get rid of you.
So what had happened was back in those days, sniper school was, the Marine Corps doesn't have the infantry doesn't have a sniper school anymore. That was done away with pretty recently, but it was really tough to get through, and there were very few quotas. So in order to get a quota, the units would run an internal sniper school to kind of see who did the best, and those guys would get to go. So right when I checked in, they had just started a internal sniper indoctrination.
Oh, nice.
So they're like, hey, you need to go through this, and if you don't do well in it, then we'll send you packing somewhere. Fortunately, the one thing I do have or did have was not quite a photographic, but a really good memory. So my ability to kind of read through stuff and commit it to memory quickly really helped. Having grown up in the like I said, the backwoods, the idea of stalking and shooting was got a second nature to me. So I wound up doing really well in the course. They kind of acquiesced and said, hey, we'll give you a shot. And I was able then to, over time, kind of earn my place in the platoon.
Man, the dudes that had been there for a while were probably like, dude, F this guy. Just shows up and he gets a seat.
Yeah, they did. But, once I started out shooting them and out stalking them, then they're like, what are we going to do?
Yeah, when when you become undeniable, it's like, well, we can be mad that he's here because he didn't spend enough time, but he's still doing better than you. So,
yeah. And that's one, less I come back to time after time in the book, but if, whatever level of success I had in the Marine Corps, and like I said, I feel like I had a pretty charmed life. But the one thing that, everybody can always do is you can always work harder.
Mm-hmm.
You just work harder than anybody else, put in more time than anybody else. And, that was right. I think the book about Carlos Hathcock, Marine Sniper, had come out.
Yeah.
It hadn't come out by that point, but I had read something in the New York Times, like between boot camp and going to infantry school, about it, about him and his story. And, one of my recruiters had been a sniper, and the picture of his, guys in their ghillie suits was on his wall. And so very early, I was like, that's something that I want to do.
For sure.
I want to do that. I want to go to recon. And then it's just a matter of figuring a way to make it happen, working hard enough to make it happen.
Yeah, Marine Sniper is why I joined. That book took me from, my dad was Army, and, I grew up around Army stuff, and I was always like, I'm going to join the Rangers, I want to be an Army Ranger. And then I read Marine Sniper in high school, and I was like, dude, F that. I'm going to the Marines, dude. This is badass. Like, this dude.
Yeah.
I mean, that book had to have brought so many people into the military, and that's such that's one of those, like, much sought after, I guess, jobs. The Marine Sniper. Like, when you say that, people are like, oh shit, like, this dude's legit. Like, if you're a school trained sniper, then everyone knows that you fucking went through something, that you earned your spot, because that's the Marine Corps' like legacy, is being good shooters and having, we always brag about being able to shoot. And that's, to say that you went through and passed Marine Sniper School, was probably a huge deal. When you went, was Carlos Hathcock still in the Marines at the time? Was he still involved with the sniper school? Because he was involved for a while.
He was not when I went through. I did meet him, and I've got a signed copy of the book.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. I went through, so I went to sniper school at Pendleton in 89. And then in 92, I had the opportunity to go to the advanced sniper course in Quantico. Mm-hmm. And while I was there, he came to our graduation, and, I got him to, I'd been carrying around a copy of the book and got him to sign it. So it was really, really a cool experience.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, that's the cool thing about, like, the Marine Corps. When you look at these, like, specialized jobs and skill sets, there's always these people within those jobs that people in that community know about. They're like, oh, so-and-so, that dude's legit. This is the guy. This is the dude that started this. And it's like, I think that kind of, even though maybe Carlos Hathcock is not as famous outside the military circles or even outside the Marine Corps circles and stuff like that, but I think guys striving to go and do that job, to go be a sniper, to be, in my case, be a JTAC, you look at the guys that came before you and you're like, man, that's a legacy I got to uphold. Like, this dude was badass, and I can't look like shit because then I make everybody look like shit, kind of deal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, one of the biggest driving factors for, most of the guys that I work with, right? Is because, you don't want to let down the people that came before you, like, who set the standard, who, did all the awesome things, whether that was, the Force Recon, guys from Vietnam, they would come and talk to us, the World War II Raiders that I get the opportunity to talk with. You can't talk with one of those guys, come into work the next day and half-ass, right? Mm-hmm. You got to be totally on your game, and making sure that everybody around you is totally on their game as well, because it's as Marines, we have this amazing, incredible legacy, right? And then, when you get to be around people like Carlos Hathcock or Chuck Mulwiney, who is a sniper that just passed away.
Yep.
Who has actually had more kills than Carlos Hathcock, or like I said, the World War II Raiders, or I recently had the chance to talk to a real prominent Force Recon Vietnam Marine, and those guys, I'm just in awe of them, and I'm in awe of our guys today. We've got, I've been out now for 16 years, which is hard to believe, but the great joy of my life is that I get to, still work, every day with Marine Raiders, and, see the the amazing things that they're doing, and they do. There's often the talk of the younger generation, blah blah blah. Everybody always wants to shit on the younger generation,
Kids
but
these days.
yeah. But the Marines, that I work with every day are hugely, respectful of the traditions of the past and of the people that went before them, and um, are definitely uphold the honor traditions and everything that the people that came before.
Yeah, man, that legacy's huge. Legacy's huge, and upholding legacy's huge. And I really admire the recon and sniper and MARSOC communities and how they uphold their legacies, and they really rally around like traditions and battles and stuff like that. There is some of that. I came from Anglico. There's obviously some of that with Anglico, but it's like a smaller unit, so it's not really the network is not as big. And it's when I was with artillery, like you can't go to. I remember going to when I first went to 10th Marines. I think it was 210. And there was like there's one of the batteries slogan was like three for one or something like that, and it was a slogan back toward World War II and one of the battles. But I bet if you had asked most of the cannoneers and stuff, they probably wouldn't have known what that slogan meant, or it's just because it wasn't like the Marine Corps itself. History is obviously beat into everybody, but I think it's important for those specific units to really embrace their own history and traditions and things that it's known for, and that really would really build the overall esprit de corps. There's a lot of that history building online now. The social media pages, you got Goons Up, which is a huge one for all the infantry MOSs. There's a page, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. They do all this Marine, 3-5 history. They were just posting about Belleau Wood the other day because June 6th is D-Day, but it's also the day that the Marines went into Belleau Wood. And I think that's really important that guys from those units saw it and they were like, you know what? This needs to be documented and put out there for mass consumption rather than, I don't know. For me, the traditions and legacy are really what brings a unit together. And like I said, I really think that the recon community more than anyone really upholds their traditions and takes care of each other,
Yeah, I would totally agree. And I was, honored to be a part of it. The sniper community, I've got the honor now of serving on the board of the Sniper Heritage Foundation. And one of the projects we're doing now is trying to raise money to get a monument built at the Marine Corps Museum. So the Scout Sniper Heritage, I think .org, you can people can buy a brick, get your name on a brick there. But a really cool, and talking of heritage, the monument that's going to be built is a World War I sniper kind of spotting for a GWAT sniper, like over his shoulder,
sick.
Point out a target. So it kind of shows the lineage from the snipers of World War I, through the Marines of today. And I think the Marine Raiders, it's really a fascinating history with them. They only existed for 2 years. It in World War II, and but they recognized how important that unit was, how important maintaining the legacy of that unit was, and so they fought, kind of tooth and nail to continue to keep their traditions alive and to continue to keep their legacy alive within the Marine Corps. So when we started up Detachment 1, there was a bunch of World War II Raiders coming out and saying, hey, we want you guys to be our legacy. We want find a way, in your unit emblem to put the Raider patch. And, we became Task Unit Raider. And then when MARSOC was activated, it took a couple of years, but finally.
That was so stupid. That was so stupid drama. Like, it's crazy that the actual Marine Raiders are like, you guys should, carry on the legacy, wear the patch. You're the future of the Raiders kind of deal. And the unit's like, no, you aren't, we're not special or whatever. Like, we don't wear it. That whole thing was ridiculous. Like, that it took so long to call themselves Raiders. I remember seeing Raiders, these MARSOC guys, and they'd be wearing a Raider patch and you knew it was unauthorized. And it's like, fuck yeah, dude. Like, you should be doing that. Like, that's what's up, because I hate that. that's exactly what I'm talking about. Build that esprit de corps, embrace that legacy, and fucking, I was on the Macon Island when I went on a MEU, and that was based off the Raider deployment there, and they had some historic stuff on the ship on display, and I always thought, I mean, like, that's an awesome way to memorialize these guys. And I don't know, I just thought that whole not wanting to call MARSOC Marines Raiders, was just such a ridiculous thing for the longest time.
Yeah, that was a big Marine Corps decision that they obviously eventually saw the light on. But the last Marine who was on that Macon raid just passed away a couple of years ago. I had the great honor to talk to him on quite a few occasions. And I mean, you're absolutely right that what drives people to fight is the people on the right and their left. It's not as much as we certainly care about people back home, but it's the people on your right and left, and it's the desire to not let your teammates down or let your legacy down. Yeah. And the more you build that legacy, layer it and build it, within the mythology and lore of your unit, the best units are steeped in that. The Rangers are steeped in that. The Marine Corps, we've always been relatively good at that. And I talk, I think the second chapter of the book, I go through a good bit of kind of Marine Corps fact and fiction and some legacy and history. We were, there's the saying that is always true, right? Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. And the Marine Corps has done that pretty well.
Yeah, for sure.
That occasions in our past.
Devil Dog is a good example of that. Like, that's, we all know the story. It came from the Germans in World War I, but did it really? That's up in the air now. Like, that actually was more of a PR win for us than anything. But it feels like your career, like reading the book and kind of looking over your career and stuff, all steps led to that spot at MARSOC Det 1, creating this unit. You got to go stay platoon and and work as a sniper there. Following that, well, let's talk about that real quick. When you were there, what was going on in the late 80s, early 90s as you're working with Stay Platoon? What kind of gear were you working with? Was this M40A1, or I mean, what kind of weapons did you have?
Yeah, we had the A1s with the round mill dots. Later they became oval and then different shapes, but there was not a whole lot. The M49 spotting scope, I'm sure you probably use that as well. Mm-hmm. That is still, I think, in service. It was made in 1949. All right, there's a lot better equipment available now. So there was not a lot of largely, generally we carry Prick 77, VHF radio, the 104, mm-hmm. And then the 113 if we needed to talk to air, UHF, and that was it. I mean, we generally walked around with the small Alice pack unless you bought your own, which the Stay Platoon guys generally would, the snipers, but not a lot of high tech equipment at that time.
What was the training like? Was it a lot of stalking training or RNS training? I mean, what did it look like for the Stay guys? Did you guys kind of do your own thing because your mission is kind of different than the rest of the infantry battalion, or
a little bit? But at least when I was in 3-7, we would, as a rule of thumb, we would get up, early Monday morning, get your weapons out of the armory, with your kit already packed, hike out to a training area, spend the whole week out there, come back on Thursday afternoon. Normally, if you did well, get back, hike back, it might be 15, 20 miles, clean weapons, put them away, and then they give you off Friday through Monday, and then you come back and do it again. And that's really all we did. I mean, it was a time, similar to what we're seeing now, when budgets were pretty tight. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't a lot of money for training. We did pretty well with ammo, our ability to go to the range and make sure we kept our qualifications up. The deployments I made there were to, unit deployment deployment program, UDP deployments to Okinawa. Again, all very, patrolling. We did a whole lot of patrolling. There was not a whole lot of focus, even in sniper school at that time, on anything to do with urban I think we did one urban stalk. But yeah, a lot of stalking, a lot of shooting, a lot of time in the woods,
Can't beat
which
that
is
though.
really no. I mean, that's where we and then the state platoon and the infantry marines and the line companies were really really good at our craft because that's all we did.
Now, in a unit like that or in a position like that in state platoon, obviously that's a serious job and there's some standards you got to uphold and you got to be a little bit better than the average Joe because of the mission set. You're out by yourself or, with only a couple people. Were there ever any situations where you guys have to let someone go? And if so, what would be a situation where someone would get, dropped from state platoon to go back to the regular infantry?
Disciplinary issues were one that I saw on a couple of occasions. That was the big one. I mean, it was not uncommon for somebody to get the opportunity to go to sniper school and fail and be retained. You probably wouldn't get to go again. But in those my early days there, it was, I mean, I think we had one or two snipers in the whole platoon. So it wasn't a expectation that every sniper was, or every man in the platoon was going to have the opportunity to go to school.
Yeah. And so I imagine if you go and you fail, I mean, what was the drop rate at school? Was it uncommon for guys to fail and come back? Or was that kind of like, hey man, only, 70% of the people fail kind of situation?
It was about, I think with my class was 50%. So I think we started with 24, finished with 12. It was very, very rare. And I don't think I had anybody when I went that, if you failed, you would get to go back just because the competition was too high. You had a shot, you screwed it up. You didn't get to try again. So I was, when I went, I was the chief instructor had been my team leader when I was in 3-7. Mm-hmm. So he got orders to sniper school. On our rifle qualification day, I was, out on the range shooting at 800, going back to 1,000, and it was 25 shots, and I think you had to hit 23 of them, or 22, something like that. And I was doing great. I get back to the 800 and then the 1,000, and I start missing, and I'm like, what the hell, man? There's no way I should be missing. And I get to the last shot, and I'm like, I've got to make the shot, or I'm not going to qualify. And the idea of that was just unfathomable to me. I shoot, target comes up, a miss.
Oh,
I'm like, yeah, I'm verging. I'm like suicidal at the time. I could have said I was suicidal, and that wasn't a thing. And nobody cared if you were suicidal.
Go ahead then.
So we pack up. I go back to the barracks. They tell me to like, hey, pack your shit. You're out of here. And I'm almost, I'm trying to hide tears. I'm in, stuffing everything in my sea bag. And, I'm walking out to wait for a bus to take me back to camp, to San Mateo. And they're like, oh, yeah, we're fucking with you. Oh. So I shot like a 24 out of 25. So that's the benefit of having your former team leader as your chief instructor at school.
Really destroying your spirit for a minute.
Yeah, I was. I had considered, swallowing that last round instead of throwing it down range, but fortunately, I didn't. All was well that ends well.
There's nothing worse, man. Marines love to screw with each other, and especially when there's not. It's funny. It's like when you're out for a long run and you're heading back, and you're like, "Oh man, I can't wait till we get back." And then they just keep going. They run by the barracks or they run by the shop, and you're like, "I thought we were stopping," and guys just start falling out. They're like, you're just putting them through mental torture. You love it.
But that, there's, maybe not in telling me that I failed, but, in that sort of situation, that builds the mental resiliency that, hey, it's never over until it's over, until your back and debrief is gone and you clean your weapons. So I'm guilty of that from time to time myself.
Yeah. It's got to keep people in check. Can't let their ego get too big, That was probably such a swing in emotion, though. The elation knowing that you passed after that.
That was, yeah, it was, yeah. I mean, I honestly, I'd forgotten about that story until we started talking about it. But yeah, it was the the saddest, I think, the most disgusted with myself I'd ever been in my life at that point. Potentially, other than not passing the recon swim Indoc the first time around.
I wonder what that does to guys that have gone on to like sniper school, recon, MARSOC, whatever. Name your school that's extremely difficult to get through, and they don't make it. There's got to be guys that literally it just destroys them. You know what I'm saying? Like there's got to be guys that were like just all the way up through high school, getting in the military. Like my goal is to go become a raider, and then they get to ANS or whatever, and they don't get selected. That has got to be a mental struggle that probably takes a long time to get over. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's we're in a MARSOC a little bit different position, obviously, because we're newer, but we've been around now 16 years ish. But now at 16 years, we have had kids that grew up, hearing about it or actually seeing things in a paper or on ads or whatever the case is, reading books, and so we do have people that are, we finally caught up to the point where we have people who've grown up, wanting to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, for MARSOC, it's a little bit different than really, I think, all of the other special operations units, in that you have to be a Marine first. So you've got to go to boot camp. You've got to go to your MOS school. You've got to serve for a couple of years before you have the opportunity to even apply.
Yeah, there's no contract MARSOC, right? You can't go in with a tryout like you can with like SF.
No, yeah, SF is they're the program that allows that the SEALs have the large lion's share of folks come right out of boot camp, but for us you don't. So when you have and I don't work with the assessment selection branch, but when we have Marines come through that get into the individual training course and then don't make it or unsuccessful, that's one of the things I generally sit down with them and talk to them about it, because I mean I can only imagine. I remember that feeling that I had, packing my stuff, and the NSW, the SEALs had a couple years ago a Marine or a sailor kill himself after getting dropped from the course.
Oh, no way!
All right, so yeah, I mean it's not the right thing to do, obviously, but it's understandable, right? You wrap your entire identity in this idea that you're going to do this thing and you're going to be this guy and it's going to be super awesome. And then something happens that prevents that from happening. And that's one of the things I talk to them about is, your identity is a hell of a lot more than this, right? Your identity is a lot more than being a Marine. It's got to be more than that if you're going to be a well-rounded person and a husband and father or someday, hopefully.
Yeah, it's and the thing too is that a lot of these guys are type A personalities that have not really failed at a lot, if anything, at life. And now they have this, goal that they've set for themselves, and they fail at it. And it's like, I can see how it's a struggle. It's almost like I saw this video talking about all these college or all these high school students that were applying to go to like, I think MIT or something like that. And it was like the average GPA was like 4.2. Their SATs were all like crazy high, all of this stuff. And then they get to these courses at like MIT or something. And these courses are extremely hard, and some of them aren't passing the courses. And this is like the first time that some of these students have ever failed at anything. These are the A+ students all the way through school, never had an issue. And now they're having mental issues because what do you mean I didn't do this right? What do you mean I'm too slow? Like, I've never been too slow. Like, it's such a, when you're at that super high level of whatever it is you're doing, it's just a whole nother ball game, Yeah,
no doubt. It's one of the things we looked at with our entire assessment selection program. The guys that are successful generally have about a 290 PFT, a physical fitness test, out of 300. But then when you look at the people that aren't successful, they generally have about a 290 out of. They're everybody that shows up is fit. Everybody that shows up, good at their job. They're good Marines. It's just we're not necessarily looking for the best guy. We're looking for the right guy or gal. that
Yeah.
can do the things that we need them to be able to do. And
I had Delta operator Tom Satterley on, and he said the same thing. And he said it took him a while to wrap his mind around that. The best guy for the job might not be the right guy for the job, kind of deal. And he's like, guys, it takes a minute for people to understand that. Yeah, it's cool you can run a 300 PFT. That's cool that you can ruck out, this pace or whatever. But do you have all the other skills to be? It's like it's just more than that. It's a whole package kind of deal. Yeah, man, that's wild stuff. But so let's continue on then. You were with State Platoon. Was there nothing going on? Why did you end up going to MSG duty and going out and working embassy guard?
That was really it. I had left 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines. There was the Marine Corps redesignated 1-4 as 3-7. So it was kind of they just took unit flags and handed it to another unit.
Yeah.
And there was no flag left at what had been 3-7. So we were all told, hey, go find a job or we'll find one for you. So I went to the 5th Marines Regimental Scouts, which was I think 6 of us, 6 Marines. We worked at the regiment, and our job was scouting and reconnaissance for the regimental headquarters to serve as the regimental commander's eyes and ears. Mm-hmm. While I was there, I had the opportunity to go to sniper school. So I went, got a seat to sniper school, went, and like I said, was ultimately successful, even though I was fucked with quite a bit. But we really didn't do a lot. We didn't, there wasn't a real mission for us. It was rare for the regiment to go to the field or do operation. So we spent a lot of time teaching classes, a lot of time just sitting around. That wasn't what I had joined the Marine Corps to do. I was just insanely bored. Sitting at a desk. It was the first time I'd ever actually had my own desk, and I was just sitting there, for months. And I was like, this is driving me batty. And like I said, at a party one night in the barracks, the career planner was like, got in my ear, and he was like, hey, I heard you're a sniper. There's this thing called Marine Security Guard duty where you'll be, operating in the all over the world at embassies. The CIA will probably pull you over to do black ops or whatever. I'm like, sign me up, man.
Sounds good to me.
So I was, a very, very gullible corporal at this point. So I signed up, went to the school, and quickly realized that it was not that. All right. It was
the career planner was not read into all the black ops missions that were going on. Damn it.
He was trying to make some quotas. He needed to get so many people to sign up. And it was, a wonderful experience. I was in Budapest when the Berlin Wall fell. So that was a really cool time. But at no point over there was I asked to take anybody out. A whole lot of standing around in dress blues, like I said, and opening doors for people. But I spent a year there, and it was there I met the woman who would become my wife. She was also an American, as a school teacher. So it's kind of funny the way things happened. We've now been married 33 years, I think. Awesome. So it's that worked out for the best. From there, I went to Argentina and spent a year and a half in Buenos Aires, and that was, like I said, when the Gulf War happened. So I missed out on that. Although a funny story, the George Bush Sr. came down at the start of the war for a visit to Buenos Aires, and I would show up every day, and I would fill out I forget what the form was called, but there was a form of personal action request that you could fill out and put anything you wanted. So every day I would come into the embassy and I would fill one out, and I would put, I want to go to I want to go to the war, send me to a unit that's deploying in support of combat operations. And I would just hand these off, and I didn't know what happened to them. They told me stop, waste of paper, but I'm like, I'm not. Ultimately, I found out later, those would go up to the regional security officer at the embassy, and he had this stack of papers that he had to deal with. But President Bush came, and the regional security officer had known him from another, known him from something previous. And we had our opportunity to meet the president, and this guy had whispered in his ear, and he's like, when he got in front of us, he's like, "Which one of you is?" If I was a sergeant then, yeah, which one of you, Sergeant Dailey? And I'm like, "Sir," he's like, "Hey, you're not going to the war, all right? Stop, stop filling out papers." So I got pretty much kind of told from the top that that I was not going to get to participate. So I let it go.
I guess the president said so. I guess I might as well give up on this one.
Yeah,
they won that round. So when as a former embassy security guard, actually the other day, it was like 4 days ago, I think one of the embassies had an attack right outside of it. Someone was shot, or there was something happened right outside. One, a local security guard for the embassy was killed. When you hear stories like that, when you hear about, hey, this embassy may have to evacuate, what kind of goes through your mind as a former embassy security guard? Because I feel like you can imagine what's happening on the ground better than a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's having also been on the other end and done, NEO operations, non-combatant evacuation operations with MU, getting embassy people out in Africa is, I've seen both sides of it. There's a whole lot of logistics, if you're in the embassy, the things that have to get destroyed. There's a lot of information, obviously, that has to get dealt with. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing with being a Marine security guard is that you're operationally under the control of the State Department. So the ability to, you're not going to go out and start running and gunning, right? The State Department's probably not going to allow that. Your whole purpose is the security of the embassy, the classified information in the embassy, the people in the embassy. So it's
which one's first, classified information, or the people?
The information.
That's what I figured.
Generally speaking, and there are other people that are responsible for it, and it depends on which people as well.
Yeah.
Ambassadors, we want to make sure they're sorted out. But it really kind of depends, I guess, on the situation, and a lot has changed since the time that I was out there. So now that I think they're called the embassy security groups, and they operate a little bit differently. A closer relationship with the FAST, the Fleet Anti-Terrorism Support Teams, and they have a little more robust capability. I mean, we carried around a wheel gun. I had a Smith & Wesson Model 19 and a Remington 870. Yeah,
that's awesome. Now they have like submachine guns and stuff.
Yeah. Now they've got a lot more. We had like patent leather polished holsters that we had our 357 in. It was pretty cool. It was cool to carry a 357 around.
You feel real cowboy-like, That's funny. So was there anything interesting that happened while you're on it? I mean, I feel like I knew a couple guys that went to embassy duty, and it always seemed like a great opportunity. And everyone I ever talked to that did it loved it. They were like, yeah, the watch standing sucks, but the opportunities to see different countries, to network with high up people within our own government, foreign governments, and stuff like that, to like for something later on, that's there. It just seems like a really good opportunity, but there's always that underlying thing like, hey, the embassy could get overrun, and we come into play. Did anything crazy ever happen while you were there?
It is. It's kind of like the hidden, maybe it's less so now, but it's a jewel in the Marine Corps. I mean, it's for a guy who had, lived in a squad bay, up until that point, you're in a house with your own, like a nice ass house with your own, like real room, real bed, like cooks and maids and drivers, right, to shepherd you around and take care of you. Marines from all different walks of life. It was really the first opportunity that I'd had to, talk with a guy who was his MOS was weatherman. We had a court stenographer who wound up being a really good friend of mine. So it was a really broadening experience. The Marine Corps always says that was really was. The opportunity to be in certainly a higher level of society, getting invited to cocktail parties and dinner parties at the Australian ambassador's residence or whatever is not something that PFC John Dailey, ever thought he would find himself doing. But yeah, I'd say the craziest when I got to Argentina, Budapest, when I was there, it was right, like I said, the wall was coming down and the Russians were leaving. There was a lot of, we were still treating the Hungarians is a communist state. So we, we'd have some walk-ins, people try to come in and defect. That would happen relatively regularly. But right when I checked into Buenos Aires, there was a coup attempt. A general who was in prison because he had tried another coup attempt, had got some guys to raid a tank factory, and there was tanks rolling through the streets, and they're trying to take over parliament. And so it was pretty exciting. The only long gun that was available was a hunting rifle that I think it was the regional security officer had locked up in our safe. So I grabbed that. I've got a pair of binoculars, and I was the only sniper, obviously. So I was up on the roof, kind of reporting what was happening, and prepared in case anything happened. But there was nothing was directed against the embassy.
How old were you at this time?
I was not 21. I must have been about 20.
That's so crazy.
That was a unique event. I had our handheld radio and just like, hey, there's two similar to T-62s. I didn't the nomenclature of their tanks rolling down the street. They're on this side of Parliament. They're rounds flying. So it was not a combat experience, but it was a lot of the same adrenaline and
much different than most 20-year-old experiences. Most 20-year-olds aren't getting an experience like that in their life. They got their rifle on top of a foreign building watching for people to overrun. That's so crazy.
Yeah, plus great beef, a lot of Argentine beef.
I've heard that actually.
Then, it was really good. And then a couple of it was a month or two later, there was a bomb, car bomb detonated. Some terrorists not outside of our embassy, but the Israeli embassy. And so that was pretty unique experience to be on the edge of that, seeing what happened, how the reactions went, and how we reacted.
It's one of those. This is where like combat experience or whatever you want to call it comes into play, because when you have a brand new guy, or maybe a guy that's been in for 3 years, a guy or girl that's been in for 3 years, and you're telling them, hey, I need you to stand on this post and just be on the lookout for anything. It's hard to convey to them after they stood there day after day after day after day and nothing's going on about how important what they're doing really is, until you've been in a situation where you've seen something like that, where a car bomb has gone off or they're trying to overrun the embassy. And then you have that experience to go, hey, I know it's super quiet and nothing's going on and this is super boring, but that could change in an instant, and you have to be ready for that. And that's the kind of, like, I think, experience that we lose when we start losing some of our combat veterans and our people that have gone and seen and done many things,
Yeah. And the leaders need to empower the young guy or gal that, hey, it's your call, man. We're putting the faith and trust and confidence in you on this position. I mean, that was, repeated itself several times, in Iraq and Afghanistan. The young Marine that certainly didn't want to be on watch, made the decision that, hey, I've got to, engage this BBIED and, protect the folks that I'm supposed to be protecting.
Yeah.
So it's, I think we lose, post combat. That's one of the things we lose always, the level for risk and decision making. We want to jack that back up. It had gotten to, I feel like, pretty much across the force, pushed down to a very low level, because it had to be, all right.
Yeah.
At the height of the war.
Well, and even, I mean, back in before the GWAT and stuff too, it was so important. You had to let the lower ranks kind of run stuff, because it's not like today where we have great communications. We have UAVs where we can see what's going on the ground. Like, like that persistent overwatch from higher echelons of command wasn't there 20, 30 years ago. You kind of had to make decisions on the fly. Now, I don't know about now because I've been out, but I know towards the latter days of the global war on terror, tons of stuff you had to send up requests to get approval from, like, these colonel and general level assets or command levels that are nowhere near you or what you're doing, but they're watching it on a UAV, and you're like, what the fuck, man? Like, I got to sit here and wait 20 minutes for this guy to make a decision when we're down here dealing with this right now. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. Early in 2000 or late 2001, but early in Afghanistan, I remember like, we need to blow these vehicles up. Right. And the JTAC that I was with, well, we've got to call higher, and higher's got to call higher. And it's somebody in, Dubai, ultimately saying, yeah, let's do this thing. Like, Jesus, back, that's one thing that, technology has just certainly reduced the amount of risks that we're willing to accept. And some of that is beneficial, right? I mean, we don't have nearly the casualties that we had in the past, but back in, I have a guy that I'm fortunate to know, John Stryker Meyer, who's a MACV-SOG guy in Vietnam.
Oh,
and,
wow.
these guys would, he's a writer, there's a remarkable guy, has a awesome podcast, the SOGcast, where he interviews those guys. But man, these guys would, helo would get, low enough where they could jump out, and chances were very good they were in contact immediately. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe the helo could come back, maybe it couldn't. Right? They were just on their own, to persecute targets, deep in the Laos, and with probably no comm, or very, very
limited.
comm.
Yeah.
They were walking around with a VHF with a 3-foot tape antenna. In a lot of cases, that level of risk will never be, assumed again, I don't think.
No, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just, I think you're right. Like, the technology is definitely great for improved situational awareness, which is key into limiting fratricide, to, negating issues before they happen. But with that, some leaders have taken it to have used that improved situational awareness to apply more micromanagement on their troops. For an example, when I was with 3-6, I remember I was with 3-6 in Marja in 2011, and we had, with our contractors, worked something out where for those that don't know, we had these things called G-bosses, which are cameras basically on a pole, like you would see at like a Walmart parking lot or something kind of deal, camera on a pole. And all of our patrol bases had G-bosses. Or excuse me, our company fobs and stuff like that. Multiple locations throughout the battlefield had these G-Boss cameras. Well, the technology had become so great that we could stream all those feeds into our command center. So we'd have like 8 or 10 G-Boss camera feeds of different parts of the battlefield. So we could see what the company commanders could see and stuff. And I remember one time one of the higher leaders watching the camera and asking why someone on a patrol didn't have their gloves on, or iPro or something like that. And they're like, radio down and tell them they need to put that on. And it's like, dude, fucking really? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I get it. Okay, whatever. The guy should have had his iPro on, whatever. But is that really? I mean, if you're a E8, E9, or you're an 04, 05, should you really be going, hey, why is this dude? That's the micromanagement. Let the dudes say something afterwards. Let the guys on the ground take care of that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know. The other thing you said too is that officers have to trust their junior Marines. And an example of that, again, when I was with 3-6, I remember we had a patrol out and they happened upon a dude who was emplacing an IED. He was actively putting it in, and the point man took the guy out. And I was in the command center. I was a fires chief, and someone came in and was like, should we start an investigation for this? And immediately the 3 Alpha, the captain, who was like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, no, we're not going to start an investigation. Clear intent. The guy isn't placing an IED. We have all the stuff. He's like, what you're going to do by starting an investigation over this Marine is, 1, freak him out because now he thinks he might have done something wrong. 2, you're going to make everyone else question themselves before they pull the trigger because they're going to wonder if they're going to get put under an investigation. And I was like, dude, that's legit. Like, I was so glad that he stopped that immediately, that kind of talk. Now, don't get me wrong. If there's a situation that warrants an investigation, then there should be one. But not every situation is like that. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of leaders won't step out and say things like that because they're too worried about their next promotion, their career and stuff, we got to get past that kind of deal. So,
yeah. And that, that's absolutely exacerbated by all of the, ubiquitous eyes on everything. There's news, 24-hour news cycle, and like you said, the ubiquitous eyes on the battlefield. For a while there was a program at SOCOM that was intending to count. It was a mechanism that would go on your weapon that would count rounds fired, essentially. But it would also track kind of where the rounds were fired, how many rounds were fired at what time, and it's this little computer chip. And people started asking the kind of hard questions like, well, what happens if I have my, you send me across the border that we don't want to be, we don't want to known that we're across, or are you going to start coming back after a firefight and looking at everybody's, who shot when, and
yes, they will.
It opens up a potential for, we've got this bad enough with, and there's obviously good and bad. We shouldn't do things that we aren't supposed to do to begin with. But
exactly.
Everybody's wearing helmet cams and everybody's, it creates a situation where, Marines or soldiers or sailors are afraid to defend themselves. Then that's obviously not the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a crazy world with technology, and it gets even crazier with implementing drones. We have ways to track individual troops, where they're at. They're working on biometrics and stuff, so you can track it's like video game stuff almost, where it's a wild world out there.
Too much information. A lot of times too much information is worse than not enough. Right? You just become inundated, and it's more than any one person can take in and make sense of. All right. So then we need AI to give us some way to make sense of that. And that's, it starts to open up a lot of vulnerabilities now, because we've got a lot of, things that could be screwed with, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. No, it's all, that's where we're moving to. The battlefield is moving online and through electronics and stuff like that, for a lot of stuff. Before we move on, because I do want to talk about you going to recon and then SOTG and all that stuff. Now, that you mentioned the battlefield is kind of changing. How does recon or other RNS elements maintain their job, basically, in this world where I can throw up a drone that has a warhead on? Why do I need a sniper when I can throw up a drone that has a warhead on it and fly it right to the guy I want to take out? How do they maintain that, like, we're still relevant in this futuristic world where, warfare is just changing constantly?
Yeah, I think, there's always going to be a place for eyes, boots on the ground, eyes on target. And I don't know that we'll get away from that. I do think it's going to be augmented with UAS and different things, but the ability to PID targets at the small unit level, where we can't have ubiquitous overwatch and the level of UAS that can provide positive identification. Mm-hmm. I think there's always, and there's going to be shifts, and there's already, the Marine Corps has already said, hey, we're doing away with our sniper platoons, or modifying them essentially to change their mission up a little bit. Recon has been ahead of the curve, I think, looking and realizing that, hey, there's, how do we shift our mission set, our skill sets, our capabilities to make sure that we maintain relevance in the upcoming fight, whatever that may be in the Pacific, or wherever that may be.
I think we're learning a lot of lessons too when you see this whole Ukraine, Russia combat going, and seeing how even these small drones can shape battlefields and how they can, I don't know. It's just the way they're being employed. Not only is it, for me, when I look at like a sniper's role, I look at, well, why use a guy that's got to take a shot that he might miss when we can use a drone that's more, it'll be easier to hit the target possibly. That's one thing. The second thing too is, how easily is he going to be identified by an enemy drone or an enemy technology that, it's not like the 70s or 60s in Vietnam where you're crawling through a jungle and you take a shot at a guy. Now we got the bad guys everybody's got thermals, thermals on drones, like employing yourself. I mean, that's got to be such a much more dangerous world when you're out on these RNS missions and these hide sites and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I haven't been out on one in quite a few years, like I said, but, we realized even in Afghanistan, you had, maybe, you had a cycle of darkness, you had 24 hours and you're going to be compromised. I mean, out in the middle of nowhere, it's just the way that, the situation was, right? And you really couldn't stay out for any longer than that. So that, it's Ukraine is showing us a lot. I think more of a conventional, like, battlefield is looking in the, today and in the future. It's an interesting time, and I think it's critical. And I think the Marine Corps has been really looking at this and making some changes that are, some I question the sniper one. Some are.
I was going to ask you what your thoughts on removing the snipers from the infantry.
Yeah, I understand the reasons behind it, and it's a sad day. I think they may come back. It's more of a history thing for me.
It goes back to our talk about legacy and stuff that we were talking about before.
Yeah, I did. I had a couple of months ago the privilege of attending the final sniper course graduation for the Scout Sniper Basic course, the Marine Corps course. There's still the Recon has a sniper course, and MARSOC has a sniper course that still continue. But everybody's really been looking at hey, how do we get out ahead of this? How do we develop different capabilities, or to make sure that we stay relevant? And Recon has had to do that time after time after time. So I don't see that being any sort of threat to the reconnaissance Marines' future.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about you going to Recon. So did you go after you came back from MSG duty? Is that when you tried it out again?
I did. I came back, got sent again to 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines, but this time, as like I said, they had moved, so we were up in 29 Palms. So I got assigned to the sniper platoon as a platoon sergeant, as I was the only sniper that they had. So got to spend that time training the Marines and the skills that I had learned, getting them ready to go to sniper school, and we lucked into a big block of quotas. I think I got to send 8 Marines to sniper school.
Oh wow!
And I think they all made it. Nice. We had a pretty good success rate. So as I kind of did that, and it's like, hey, it's my payback. I want to go take the Force Recon Indoc. So they had actually, like I said, they sent me to the advanced sniper course in Quantico, and I got to go to Army Ranger School in the interim, and then jump school, and then so I was, I had some of the qualifications that they were looking for, this time around when I went back to Force Recon to take the Indoc, and I could swim. So that was helpful.
Yeah.
So I'd say it's a tough, I took the Indoc this time at 1st Force Recon, at Camp Pendleton. And it's a tough test, but I was much more prepared for it that time around.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, back in the day, I think it would probably be hard to be prepared necessarily, because if you don't have a direct access to like information and stuff, like people forget 80s, 90s, early 2000s, any kind of knowledge that you pulled, if you weren't directly in that community, you were reading in books, maybe reading in a publication, a magazine or something like that. That's where the information came from. Now you can follow the Basic Reconnaissance Course Instagram page, and they show you them going through BRC and what you're going to be expected to do. I can't imagine. I would feel much less sympathetic for someone showing up unprepared today than I would if someone showed up unprepared 20 years ago,
Yeah. I mean, coming to MARSOC, we give you a training program. Like if you follow this, then you should be successful, and still a lot of people aren't. But yeah, at the time, you really had to know somebody. Everything was kept pretty close hold, and it was easy to keep things close hold. So you had to know somebody that had been through if you wanted any information. I had the benefit of having tried once unsuccessfully,
Yeah.
so at least I knew what they did at 2nd Battalion, which was absolutely different than a different order, different makeup of things than they did at First Force. But it was I knew I needed to be able to go for a long distance with a ruck on my back fast. I needed to be able to run fast, go over obstacles, and more importantly, be able to swim. So I was prepared for that time, and we did the swim earlier in the day, then a long ruck up through the mountains, and down to the ocean, and then we went back in the water, which I was less prepared for. I hadn't counted on, I guess. But at that point, like I said, my swimming skills were pretty solid. So made it that time around and got to go to First Force Recon. And really I got there in 92 and stayed until 2002. So, I mean, that was really, half of my Marine Corps career was there.
Now,
so
a lot of people know like a sniper's mission is to do reconnaissance, surveillance, and shooting, right? Very similar to what a recon Marine, what you would think if you're outside of the bubble. Can you kind of explain the difference between their missions and how being in the sniper platoon sets you up for success to go over to recon?
Absolutely. And there's a lot of transition. A lot of snipers make their way into recon. But so in a sniper platoon, you work for the unit commander that you're supporting is your battalion commander. So you're answering the questions that he has. So which are you're generally, maybe a mile or two away from his location. So you're working relatively close to friendly support. And you're answering his information requirements. Mm-hmm. When you go to reconnaissance battalion, they're kind of in the same thing. They're working for the battalion command. And so they're, again, answering his questions. The force recon units are working for the force commander. So that, just the senior guy on the ground. When we got into Afghanistan in 2001, I worked for General Mattis. I was answering General Mattis's information requirements through the MU. He would tell the MU commander, hey, I need to find these things out. Then let's use the force recon. So the big difference is really the kind of distance behind enemy lines or distance forward of friendly support that we operate.
Can you tell us, you mentioned being on the MU and going in Afghanistan. So you were part of the MU that was one of the first responders to 9/11. That what an honor that would have been. There would have been millions of Americans that would have like traded places with guys that were, heading over there. It may not have been like the most robust battles or whatever, but it was still like, it had to have felt good that you were doing something so close to after 9/11 happened,
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We were in Darwin, Australia, actually sitting in a pub. It was like 9:00 at night when the soccer game that was on the bar above the TV. We were sitting in an Irish pub in Darwin for whatever reason, but drinking, I don't even know what, but a lot of it. And it was the first night that we'd had a chance to go out. We'd been out on ranges training, and the bartender like hollered at us, and we looked up and saw the first tower getting hit. And it took a while to kind of piece together what was happening. But then the shore patrol, the Marines who were on shore patrol, came running down the street, just yelling in every bar, "Get back to the boat, back to the boat." So by the time we got back to the boat, the sun came up the next morning, and we were at sea, and steamed, got us straight to Pakistan initially, and then to Afghanistan. So absolutely, it was a huge honor. But I feel like, and maybe other people feel differently, but we weren't getting a lot of information. So the full gravity of the situation and the way everybody experienced that in the States was somewhat lost on us. I mean, we knew it was bad. We knew we were going to war, but we weren't there for the collective experience that everybody in the States had. We would get some, pre-recorded video of newscasts and things after, but we were, to a person on the entire, Marine Expeditionary Unit, absolutely understood that we were going to be the ones to go and get some revenge, and we're very, very glad about that. To be in that have that opportunity.
Dude, it just makes my hair stand up on my arms thinking about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, people that weren't alive or don't remember, 9/11, it was just a wild time. It was a wild time, and I remember I was a senior in high school when it happened, and I remember when the first plane got hit, and my buddy coming over to my house and being like, "Yeah, dude, you hear the World Trade Center got hit by a plane?" I'm like, "What's the World Trade Center?" I'm like a teenager in Indiana. Like, there's not really, I don't know what the fucking World Trade Center is, like this.
Yeah.
And then the second one hit, and it was like, oh, and I had been talking about joining the military forever. And it was kind of like one of those, kind of like nut up or shut up kind of things. And me and some of my buddies went down to the recruiter that week, and it was like, holy shit, man, this is like a Pearl Harbor moment. Like, we've been attacked, and like, what are you gonna do? It's kind of the situation. Like, what did you do after America was attacked? And I can say that was the first time I went down and talked to the recruiter and was like, let's do this.
Yeah, that's. I mean, like I said, I'm hugely honored to have been in the position that I was in. But if I could have split myself in half, I also would have liked to have been here to kind of seen, kind of bringing out the best in people. America's coming together, and so that would have been nice. And so now, even on anniversaries, like I don't feel that I have the full impact or understanding of it, because we were. I mean, as a platoon sergeant, at this point, I had just on September 1st, I got promoted to E7 to gunny. All right, so I mean, right before this happened, so I was, the first time leading, as a platoon sergeant, as a leader at the unit of that size, knowing that you're going into combat, instantly you start questioning, hey man, have I done everything possible? What can I do? How do we make sure that I bring all these guys home?
Yeah.
So it was, that trek over from Australia to off of the coast of Pakistan, where we eventually launched from, was a flurry of activity, of prepping. Let's go over this again and again and again, for the sole reason that I promised your wives that I'm going to do my damnedest to make sure that y'all come home.
Yeah, that's one of those moments where you're like, dude, training's over. The next time we do this is for real. So, like, either we're ready or we're not ready, and it comes down to it. And I know what you're talking about when you're looking and you're like, man, are we ready? Or if you have to question it, I don't know. I think everybody kind of questions it a little bit. I remember when I deployed with 3-6, one of my comm guys, we were waiting to get on the buses to deploy, and his dad came over and was like, make sure you bring him home. And I'm like, whoa. And I'm a sergeant, and I'm like, dude, why would you fucking say it? I mean, I know what you're saying as his dad and shit, but damn, dude, like, talking about put some pressure on me. Like, now if something happens to him, I'm going to feel like a real piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's intense.
Yeah. I knew that our guys were ready, ready as they were going to be, ready as they could be, and ultimately they prove that they were. But as a leader, that's always in the back of your head. What more could I have done? Is there anything else that I skipped, or that time I let guys take off 2 hours early? What maybe we could have crammed in another couple drills.
What is that saying? Don't let any man's ghost ever say he wasn't trained, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and that's the kind of the part of the burden of leadership of you've got just the responsibility of making sure that you do everything that you can to make sure that your Marines or sailors or soldiers are set up for success as they can be, and that's the responsibility, but also the privilege, right, of being a leader.
Yeah. And it's a lot when you're a younger guy. I mean, we tend to forget that, uh, a staff sergeant, a gunny in the Marine Corps who's in charge of many people sometimes will be 28 years old, 27 years old, 26 years old, and it's like that's a lot of responsibility and pressure for a 26-year-old when you think about what the average 26-year-old gets put through. And it's not necessarily a bad thing too, because I think it shows us what we're actually capable of. We're capable of pushing ourselves beyond what we think we can do, train a little bit harder, be ready, and then when we go and do the mission, the operation, the whatever, and we accomplish it, we can go, yeah, of course we accomplished it, because we were ready,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. Man. And at this point, I was probably 32, maybe. So man. I'd been around, but like I said, I still hadn't been shot at. I've seen some shooting going on, but so it was very shortly after we got in country. Again, General Mattis said, "Hey, I need you guys to go forward and find the Taliban." So we wound up in December 7th, going to set up what was a vehicle roadblock, essentially, on a highway coming out of Kandahar. And I sat and told, we had air overhead telling us, hey, there's, some vehicles coming out of Kandahar. They'll be your way in 2 hours or whatever. And maybe they would turn off, maybe they wouldn't. But, as we sit there kind of joking, in the freezing cold, I was telling these guys, I'm like, man, I'm like the anti-bullet magnet, right? I'm like a bullet repellent. I'm like, if you're with me, nothing's going to happen, right? When I was in boot camp, I distinctly remember a drill instructor saying, if you're a 4-year tour in the Marine Corps, you're going to be shot at. And I'm like, man, I've been through now. I'm on my third, enlistment, and so far, he was a fucking liar. So we were kind of joking about that, and then the air comes back over, and they're like, yeah, you've got 2 vehicles of suspected Taliban, headed your way. Now they're, 5 miles out. Now they're, a mile out. And that wound up being the first, engagement. We had run concertina wire across the road, marked it so that they would have the ability to stop if they chose to do so. They didn't choose to do so. So they tried to gun it. And it's a wild thing to see a pickup run into concertina wire. It snatched him up pretty quickly, and we jumped out, and they tried to shoot us. We shot them, and so that was, my bad luck spell had been broken, I guess.
That was the official beginning of the global war on terror for you. That was,
yeah. The Army Special Forces up in the mountains had been, doing some stuff already, but that was. Really the first shots for the Marine Corps. So that was kind of a cool.
After that engagement, did your mindset change at all? Did it, like, now that you've been, in a situation where you could have been killed by the bad guys, did it make you rethink how you approach different things?
It didn't, but it absolutely confirmed what I had been taught and the training that we'd done, the way I looked at things. I had, always, like I think I said earlier, been a huge reader, and as a professional of arms, right, I felt it my responsibility to read as much about combat as possible. Mm-hmm. So as a kid, tons about Vietnam, but, when I got into Force Recon, the direct action mission is, kind of one of the things that draws people, close quarter battle, hostage rescue at the time that we were doing. There's not a whole lot written about it, but there was enough written about it that explained the kind of the mindset, the human's reaction to high stress, particularly in combat, getting shot at, the things that can happen to you. And so I was acutely aware while this gunfight was going on that, oh man, I read about this auditory exclusion, this sensory, similar to when you get ready to pass out in the pool, your tunnel vision that you get, just all of these things going on. I'm like, oh man, I've one of the unique and interesting things that happens is if you're well trained, everything is been handed over to muscle memory, mm-hmm. right? So you react largely on instinct. And what happens when you do that is you free up this headspace, so your mind has nothing to do, right? Because your body is doing the thing that you've rehearsed it to, over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So all of these crazy thoughts I'm having, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember reading about that. I'm like, oh, that guy's AK that's shooting at me is that's fucking cool. I'm like, once we kill him, I'm going to take that and bring it home and like put it up in the in the headquarters building with a plaque, because I'm like, not lost on me that I'm the first platoon sergeant that's, taken a Force Recon platoon into combat, in, since the Gulf War. So I'm like, man, that's pretty cool. And just all these random thoughts are going on while we're engaging, multiple Taliban targets. And then after everything was over, there were more vehicles that we used, the JTAC that was with us to engage with air. And when we got back from that, I sat down with all of with each guy individually. I'm like, hey man, tell me what you experienced. And it was really fascinating as an experiment, to see, some people experienced a lot of the same things I did. Some people were like, nah, man, everything was loud as shit. Well, the biggest thing that I recognized was that the rounds were not nearly as loud as they should be. All right, I kind of sound totally cut out. Like I was not quite deaf, but almost deaf.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, this tunnel vision, all I could see was the guy who was shooting and trying to shoot at me, and me shooting at him. So, if I wanted to see what was going on to my left and right, I didn't have my normal peripheral vision, so I had to turn my head. I was like, that's a weird thing. So I, sat down with a notebook and just took notes and like interviewed everybody, asked what they experienced, what they hadn't, and that really started a fascination for me of trying to learn more about how we perform in combat situations, and then how we can better train people. So that's kind of been my life's work, that I still get to engage in, with MARSOC Marines, and talking with them about that, and kind of explaining some of the things that they might experience, how to train to enhance the good things, and kind of bring down some of the negative things.
Yeah, anticipate. Yeah, it's funny because I talked to some of the people I talked to that have gone on these like wild missions and stuff, and I ask them about it, and they're like, it was kind of crazy how it was. They're like, I didn't really think about it because it was almost exactly like training, and they would explain like, this is exactly the same thing we did in training, and it didn't really kind of dawn on me that we're in combat or that we're doing this thing. And I was like, well, I guess that means the training worked, right? I mean, we always joke about how this doesn't seem realistic, like training, this isn't. And then you go and do some of the things and you're like, wait, this is exactly. The first time I remember thinking that specifically was when I was in my advisor team and we did all this advisor training, and it's like, oh, I'm going to walk up and there's going to be the line of senior leaders from the Afghans, and we'll introduce, stand across from your counterpart and introduce yourself. And we're doing this in training. I'm like, there's no way we're actually going to do this in real life. And it's just, the whole thing seemed kooky. And then we get to Afghanistan. It's exactly what happened. We line up right across from our counterpart, introduce ourselves, sit down, have chai. And it's just like, I don't know. It's weird to think that I'm surprised that the training is good, but it's also weird to think that it's so good that it's, it's that good.
Yeah. I think, what you come to realize, and it seems to me, the kind of higher, more professional unit or higher tier unit or whatever that you work with, the more they realize this. And it's a fundamental that, when I was a young guy in a sniper platoon, I was like, what's the cool thing? What's the cool thing? And the cool thing is the basics,
the brilliance in the basics every day.
You said it, brilliance in the basics, and that gets said so much that it loses its value. But if you go to a unit and you see them doing inspections and rehearsals, and I mean, you can bet that they're a unit that's going to perform well in combat. The guys at the highest level that I've worked with, are the guy who would grab you and say, "Hey man, look over my kit. Just check me over." Young guys often will get, frustrated that their squad leader wants to, look at their stuff.
PCCs
right?
and PCIs.
Hey man, I'm a pro. I can take care of it. But the professionals want to be inspected. And the professionals want to get to confirm things and make sure that they've got it right, because so many things depend on it. But once you've gotten to that point where you're getting all the little things right, I talk about it in the book, it started as a essay that I wrote that just like I was out for a run and I'm like, what it means to be good at war, right? And it's really just recognizing the basic things. Where can somebody shoot at me from? What's the most likely place that somebody can shoot at me from? And how do I put myself in a position to prevent that? All right. And, it's geometry. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Once you realize that, and if you're working with a team that realizes that, everybody, it's orchestrated chaos. It's just guys moving so, rapidly, always putting their weapon at the place that it needs to be to protect the force, mm-hmm. right? Or to take out whatever threat might emerge. And it's a kind of a weird way to say it, but it's a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, no, I 100% know what you're talking about. And I think that is amplified in my community, in the fire support community and stuff like that, where you're doing 3-dimensional planning. You're planning, where are the guys on the ground? Where's aircraft in the air? Where's the artillery? What's the gun target line look like? How is that going to affect my air, where I can place aircraft, where I can attack from, the direction I can attack from, what ordnance I can use? And it takes a certain individual to want to. I loved it because it was so high pressure, and it was very much a brilliance in the basics thing. Like, guys, you'd see JTACs come out and try to get all fancy with like a control and stuff and do these weird things. It's like, dude, just do the basic thing, follow the timeline, and if everything lines up and everything hits the target when it's supposed to do, it just works out. And it's that was a big thing that separated like guys that became JTACs and guys that didn't, was that you could give me a bunch of information, a bunch of inputs, and then I could turn around and take that information and spit out, here's what we're going to do to accomplish a mission. Here's what we're going to do for this strike. Hey, I'm going to put in artillery as you're maneuvering these dudes this direction. Once they're set, then I'm going to bring in air, and they're going to attack the target. And then when they pull off, you guys are going to move forward. And you work these timings out. And then when you see it happen, when you got all the plan ready to go and you're like, all right, TOT is set to 1-0. And you just watch everything start going. Artillery starts shooting, air comes in, maneuver element starts moving up, Miklik goes off. It's just like, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to watch. And it's there have been studies done that in the hours before combat, it was primarily on FOBs, things like that the junior Marines or soldiers or whatever are pretty low stress. But the instant the fight kicks off, their stress level, shoots through the roof. Mm-hmm. For the leaders, their stressful time, or the JTACs or the corpsmen, like their stressful time is, before, in the planning, because there's so much to consider, but when, and I think the same could probably be, extrapolated to special operations units, because everybody's involved in the planning, everybody's involved in the rehearsals and the decision making, so everybody knows what should be happening. So when it actually starts happening, then the stress level drops immensely, and it's like, hey, let's do this thing.
The plan is working, everything's on time, and when you become a real professional is when you can adjust on the fly. Something happened with this timeline, artillery couldn't shoot because of this, what are we going to do? You can't stop, the maneuver's already going and this is already happening. Mm-hmm. Well, what are you going to do? And that's when you become like a true professional, is when you can shoot from the hip and kind of make things work out, even when the situation is kind of degraded a little bit.
That's the one thing that you can always count on, is that, nothing's going to work the plan.
Yeah, something's going to happen. Calm goes down.
The idea of and it's air, concept, Boyd and the OODA loop. When you have a reduced level of stress, then you have the ability to recognize, move through the OODA loop faster. All right, so now I can orient on what's happening, because my heart's not racing a million miles a minute. I know what should be happening. I know it's not the right thing. All right, well, let me adjust. Mm-hmm. And then, hopefully we're moving through that, much more rapidly than our opponent is.
Yeah.
And that's, I think the organizations that I've been in, that's kind of been the standard, and the expectation is that we are people that can, move through the OODA loop rapidly, make, the best decision that can be made, given the certain circumstances that are in play.
For sure. For sure. We're running out of time, and I want to get to the Det 1 stuff. So we'll definitely have to schedule another podcast. I think we have about 20 minutes. Let's jump ahead and talk about how you got pulled to Det 1. So you were at Recon, and from Recon you went to SOTG, from what I understand, and you worked under Mr. Coates, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I went, like I said, I'd been at First Force for almost about 9 years or so, and they like, hey man, you got to go somewhere. So I went to SOTG. I took over the urban sniper course and the urban reconnaissance course. While I was there, Colonel Coates, who had been my CO at First Force and then had come over to SOTG, he'd pulled me over with him. He got tapped to lead this unit, this Detachment 1, which was, there have been rumors about it for since, shortly after 9/11, that Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld said, hey, we're going to need more special operations. So Marines, you're going to participate this time. We didn't participate in 87 when SOCOM stood up.
Yeah.
But it was back and forth, and the Marine Corps was not super keen on the idea. Special Operations Command was not super keen on the idea. So there was a lot of machinations to get to the point. But ultimately, the decision was, hey, we're going to form a small unit formed of kind of known quantity Force Recon guys, and we had JTACs, we had communicators, a big intel section, but everybody was kind of handpicked. I had the good fortune of landing largely because I was coming off of, like I said, being the first platoon sergeant to take a platoon into combat. Colonel Coates asked me if I wanted a shot, wanted a team, and I couldn't say yes fast enough. So when he brought me into his office, and that's where the title of the book comes from, he said, hey, Dailey, you got a team, you get to pick them, from kind of anybody in the Marine Corps, or in Force Recon, really. There were a couple of Marines actually on my team who had gotten out, that I was like, hey, can we get this guy? And I call him up, see if he wants to come back in. So we had, the guy who wound up being my kind of right-hand man, Mike, who I talk about a lot in the book, who was my sniper spotter and another sniper that I worked with. Brought those guys in, but he's like, pick who you want, but they have to be tough, rugged bastards. And I'm like, that's, if I ever write a book, that's going to be the title. So that was 2003 when I put that in my head. I'm like, I'm going to write a book, and it's going to be called Tough, Rugged Bastards. Mm-hmm. So it's been a long time in the making, but yeah, it was a huge honor to be selected to serve in that unit. We started with a 87 man TO. And like I said, that was about 30 Force Recon Marines, about 30 intel guys. And then there wasn't a whole lot of meat on the bone. One or two, administrative guys, a handful of a fire cell, like a supply guy. That was really about it. And then and we grew a little bit to about 100 by the time we deployed. But there was a lot of uncertainty what we were going to be doing, who we were going to work for, who we were going to work with, where we were going. I mean, we initially assumed that we would go to Afghanistan. That didn't happen. We wound up in Iraq, and it was a phenomenal opportunity and just a great opportunity to demonstrate to the rest of SOCOM what the Marine Corps was capable of.
What did, what a crazy thing to be like handpicked to get to do something like that. And then be told like, hey, who do you want on your team? When does that ever happen in the military? Like,
yeah, it was. The whole thing was surreal and unusual, but it was.
Did you guys know that you were working towards just one deployment? Like, this is a test. We're gonna do one deployment, and then we don't know. Did you know what the future held, or what was kind of the long-term mission of the team that you had built?
Yeah, absolutely not. We did have a charter that kind of chartered us for a 2-year proof of concept. We wound up existing for 3 years, but we were kind of, those of us at the team level, right? We're kind of oblivious to what was going on outside of us. We thought, based on the success that we had when we got back, that the simple answer was, hey, we're going to, like a fucking amoeba or whatever, we're going to replicate, and we'll make another, detachment 2, and then a detachment 3 and a detachment 4, and we'll grow that way. That was what seemed to make sense to us, and kind of what we were hoping for. There was there was questions every day: are we going to go away? Or the Marine Corps still wasn't really interested in providing forces to SOCOM, but ultimately Rumsfeld came down and said, hey, you're going to create a whole command. Mm-hmm. And so rather than doubling in size, we 10x 20x 20 times in size. And when you go to an organization that big, a 2-star organization, there's so much involved in that. So a lot of the Marines in Detachment 1, there were not a lot of us that went over and actually went over to MARSOC.
Why is that?
A lot of them were very senior and got out or retired. There were some went back to Force Recon, and then ultimately would be rolled into MARSOC when it started. But there were personalities kind of at play that didn't welcome us, I think, with open arms necessarily. But there was some of us that said, hey man, welcome or not, I'm coming. And that's how I got out here to the East Coast. I, sought out a job working at the school, or to really help start the school when MARSOC started up.
Now, when you're at, let's say, a MARSOC reunion or something like that, an event, where do the Det 1 people lie within that legacy? Are those original guys considered Raiders, or how does that work?
It's kind of a big ball of shit. When you now, just the term Raider is very loaded, right? And there's still a lot of discussions going on.
Because even when MARSOC was stood up, it took multiple years before they even called themselves Raiders.
Yes, yeah, and it was in I think 2014 that proclamation was made. The commandant came and said, "Hey, MARSOC are Raiders." It might have been 2016, but there's still discussion. Is it just the guys that wear the badge? Is it everybody in the command? So the Marines from Det 1 are considered to be the forefathers of MARSOC. So they're viewed as Raiders.
That's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm not. You never know in those in those communities, like those little technicalities. Some people will be like, no, they weren't.
Yeah. Well, I don't. Yeah, I don't know that I can speak for everybody, but I can. A couple of 2 years ago, we had the opportunity to have a reunion and bring a lot of the Det 1 folks out, and it was pretty awesome because a lot of them, like I said, retired and never. We were living in temporary shelters at Del Mar Boat Basin in Camp Pendleton. To come out and see a multi-million-dollar compound that MARSOC has now,
the Death Star out there
of thousands. For them, it was really great. And at every case, the CSOs and the special operations officers treated the Det 1 guys as the forefathers. Just like we treat the World War II Raiders.
That's awesome.
So it was interesting to see, and it's interesting because I've been kind of with it since its inception. Mm-hmm. So sometimes things are lost on me. That somebody who's been outside comes in and they're like, "Wow, it's amazing. How far we've come in a relatively short amount of time."
I can't imagine. I mean. Well, I'm sure when it first started up, in the book, you're talking about having to get new gear, and you go through what was it, Natick Labs, Natick Labs, working with them to get specialized gear and stuff. To you're talking about living in temporary shelters and stuff like that. To now the logistical backbone that is SOCOM and MARSOC, and it's all streamlined. The processes are in place. You know, all the stuff that you guys stumbled over and learned are being put to good use to where they don't have to do that anymore. And I mean, it's a completely different unit. I remember when they built the MARSOC headquarters out there. It completely changed the rifle range out at Camp Platoon.
Yeah.
It almost felt like you're coming into a complete, like if you had gone to the range the year before they built it and then you went back out there like a year after they built it, you'd almost, like, the roads are even different. Like, it changed the roads, and it's like, what the hell?
Yeah, the gate's been moved, everything changed. So yeah, huge impact. And the product, I definitely think the product that we're producing, the guys that come to the school now and are light years above where I was, as a staff sergeant and a gunny. So it's pretty awesome to see. But still, the thing that I beat into them is brilliance in the basics. All right, humility and brilliance in the basics.
Brilliance in the basics is huge. I had Aaron Brandfass on. I'm not sure if you know him or not.
Yeah, I know Aaron.
Yeah,
I put him through the urban sniper course.
Oh, nice.
Years ago.
It's funny. I was talking to him. You assume, me on the outside looking in at snipers, I would assume that those guys are like just fully enveloped in guns and scope theory and ballistics and then you talk to some of them are. Some of these dudes will talk to you about a rifle like I would talk to someone about like a 65 Chevy. Like they know the ins and outs. There's, this was manufactured in this area and the metal of that year was a little bit not, like they go to a different level. And then you got guys like Aaron that's like, yeah, it was cool. I like being a sniper, but I don't really shoot anymore. And it's like, it's kind of crazy. You go from so into it, like you have to be like enveloped in a job like that to just being like, it's just something I used to do.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, the guys get out and go into graphic design. I got out and got a master's degree in creative writing.
I told my buddy the other day, I was like, dude, I no longer have calluses. I was like, I've traded calluses and stuff for my wrist gets tired from clicking my mouse all day because I'm on my computer like a loser all day long. Like, what has happened to me?
Yeah, it's progress, I guess. I don't know, but it's one of the things that I talk all the time to guys who are transitioning. You don't feel that you got to you've got to stay in this the government service area or the shooting bad guys area, the contracting, if that's not your thing, I mean, there's the whole world's open to you, and you're absolutely a better person for the time you spent in uniform.
I 100%. Yeah, I try to tell people that all the time. I'm like, it doesn't matter if you did 4 years, you did 20 years, whatever, that period when you're getting out, if you play it right, that's an opportunity in life. That's like a once in a life opportunity in life to go after something you've always wanted to do. A lot of guys, especially if you're a single or you're married but you don't have any kids, and you can be a little bit more reckless, I guess, or you can take some more risk. It's like, so when I got out of the Marines, I didn't know what I was going to do necessarily. I kind of knew I was going to go to school. Initially, I thought I was going to get a business management degree or a business administration degree. And like within a semester, I was like, this fucking sucks. Like, I don't want to do this. This all roads lead to a cubicle at some company. And I don't know if that's what I want to do. And I started the podcast and I started a couple websites and stuff to sell t-shirts. And I was like, you know what? Like, somebody's got to do this. Someone's got to be the guy that does the podcast or the whatever. Like, and I have this opportunity to go to school right now. And yeah, the podcast is tiny. Yeah, the website's tiny. But I have 3 years of school that's going to get paid for by the military. And I'm going to get BAH. I'm going to get that housing allowance and all that stuff. That gives you kind of a buffer to take a chance on like, hey, I'm going to build a website and see if I can make it into something. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I was like, I have 3 years to get this going, and hopefully by the time I graduate, I don't need to go get a real job because I've built this over these couple years and done that. And I think a lot of people don't understand. Maybe they don't realize it or they don't care. They just want to get out and go right into the easiest job that's transferable. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if there's an inkling that you want to try something different, that time you get out is a huge, that's an opportunity you should really embrace. And you should really, don't wait until that time when you're out to figure out what you want to do. Give yourself a 2-year head start and really kind of You know, when I first got out, I told myself I wanted to do like be a documentarian, you know, travel the world, shoot photos and do that kind of thing. I'm like, somebody's got to do it, right? Well, you know, and I started trying to work towards that and kind of realized that's not going to happen. Like, you got to have like financial backers and stuff. Like, it's tough to get into that. But, you know, I just knew that I wanted to do something else. I wanted to get away from the government work. I wanted to get away from all of that and try something completely different. And I guess what I'm getting at is just don't be afraid to try that if you're out there. You know, you got to have that mindset of why not me? Kind of like when you're going through any of the schools in the military, these sniper school, be a JTAC, go to Recon, go to MARSOC. You know, you got to have that why not me mentality. If you go into it going, I could never be a rapper, I could never be a graphic designer, I could never be a movie producer, then yeah, you self-selected. You're not going to be any of those things. So
yeah, I think there's and I don't know. I think that's, you know, at the height of GWAT, it was the thing to do. Get out and take a, you know, go to Triple Canopy or go here or go there and get the same stuff.
You all heard, you hear about it. You're like, oh, they make $600 a day, $700 a day. Why wouldn't I want to do that?
But you know, the thing I really wished I would have done. I retired on a Friday. I showed back up on a Monday as a, you know, employed, right, doing the same thing largely. With 2 days of not 2 days of a beard. All right. You know, I tell guys, you know, all the time now, man, just at least take a little bit of a break, do something. You know, if you can go hike the Appalachian Trail, you know, do that. If it's only a weekend, you know, do something. But, you know, take some time before you start settling down and looking for a job. You know, that's the one I don't regret. Well, I kind of regret, but I mean, we were at the point where we're getting ready to start the first MARSOC training course, and there's a lot to be done. But yeah, I really encourage people to do that. Like you said, start early, start thinking about, you know, what is that you want to do now that you've grown up. I mean, now I'm getting to the point where I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up again.
I know, right? That's the other thing too. When people got to realize, be okay with not following through with what you thought it was that you wanted to do. Like me saying I wanted to be a documentarian. I was 100% serious about it. I was out shooting photos constantly. I was doing all these things. And then I just kind of realized, like, this isn't in the cards for me. But there may be something else that I like that is, so let's work towards that, you know?
Yeah, well, it's like being on a patrol, right? You have a route laid out that you think you're going to go on, but once you actually get on the ground, you're like, hey, you know, this is going to be an easier way or a better way or a more concealed way. You know, you got to play the cards as they lie. So
yeah. One thing, so I want to get back to, I totally kind of went on a little tangent there, but when I brought up Aaron, because when he was on, he said that I asked him what the difference he saw between Recon and MARSOC was. And his answer to me was that at Recon, everyone's a meathead. You know, everyone's in great shape. You know that everyone is a good shooter. You know, all of, like, they're just grunts that are ready to walk through whatever. And then he's like, at MARSOC, the guys seem to be overall smarter, and some of them are meatheads. And he's like, the difference is, like, at Recon, everyone that's there is an infantry guy. Every guy's an infantryman. They start in the infantry. Some of them might lat move and come into it, but for the majority, they're all infantry guys. MARSOC, everyone comes from different backgrounds. Yeah, there's a lot of infantry guys, but you got some generator mechanics. You got some aircraft mechanics. And they leverage that background experience of that individual to make the overall team better. Because, oh, hey, our generators are fucked up. Well, we don't need to call a generator mechanic because Bob used to be a generator mechanic. He can show us how to do it ourselves. What do you think? What is your take on the difference between the two? You kind of rode both sides.
Yeah, I think you know, I think it was acceptable when I was in, and I think things have changed a little bit more. But when I was at Force Recon, you know, you could tolerate a couple of meatheads in a team. You know, the strong guy that's not really smart but can carry a lot of stuff. You know, there's still, I mean, the requirement when we say meathead, I mean, you still gotta be a smart guy.
Yeah,
you gotta have a lot on the ball. You've got to have a lot of skills, and that at Recon now has increased, you know, a lot as well. But definitely, I think the breadth of the mission at MARSOC requires, like I said, you know, not every Recon guy that comes to assessment and selection gets selected. You know, and at first people were kind of losing their mind. You know, what do you mean? This is a Recon guy. Well, we're selecting for not a recon guy. All right. So we're selecting for somebody that has a whole lot of skills that the recon guy, or, there's a lot of commonality, but there's a lot more to it than that. We've got to have people that are, interpersonal skills are really huge. That was not something that was really ever considered as a discriminator when I was at Force Recon. Your ability to work with partner nation forces, your ability to, learn language. There's a lot of other things that go into it. So I definitely think that the average Force Reconnaissance Marine that comes over to MARSOC does, by and large, much better than anybody else. But it's not the same job. And I think sometimes, like, the difference between being a Ranger and a Green Beret, right? They're both special guys. But it's not the same job. And there's a lot of compatibility, but not 100%.
Yeah, for sure. Well, man, I really appreciate it, John. This has been great. Again, for people, Tough Rugged Bastards is the name of the book. Is this going to be out on Amazon? Is there going to be a pre-order?
It's on Amazon now. You can pre-order it right now, Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Books A Million, or you can go to your neighborhood bookstore and ask them to order it for you. So it's distributed by Simon & Schuster. So it's pretty much everywhere.
That's awesome.
But it'll be on shelves or in your mailbox on August 13th.
That's legit, man. I've enjoyed it so far. I'm over 100 pages into it, and I'm really enjoying it. And I mean, again, like I said at the beginning, your career is so in depth, and there's so much that we haven't covered yet. I think we need to schedule another podcast episode. So if you're available, I'd like to get you on again before the book comes out, so that we can, help promote it again and get some more of these stories out there. Outside of, people finding your book on Amazon and all that, where can people find you?
The easiest way is just jadailey.com. That's my book website, essentially. And there's links to the Substacks that I write weekly. There's one about rucking that's largely focused on mental toughness and rucking, and another one largely focused on trying to distill kind of some of the lessons that I've learned over the last 50 some odd years now, and taking the things that I've observed from super successful folks in the military and other folks that I've been able to work with, and translate that into ways that we can all get better at getting better.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'll put that link in the description for people to check out.
Awesome.
As always, check out my website, jkramergraphics.com. My Instagram is @FormerActionGuys, @FormerActionNews. You can support the show over on Patreon as well if you'd like to do that. And that's it, man. Another good interview. I really appreciate it.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Justin.